Hello everyone and welcome to Hobby Starter. My name is Mark Smith and I'm a guest designer on JewelleryMaker. And today I'm going to talk you through one of my favourite techniques and probably for me the most mindful and the most therapeutic, rosary linking. Now for me, rosary linking is a technique that once you get started it's difficult to know when to stop, and you can make the most beautiful jewellery using, in my opinion, probably the most minimum of tools and the most minimum of equipment of anything that you need. So first of all, I'll just show you a few of the pieces that you can make, and I think I'm going to show you this one here first, just to show you the difference in large and small. So you can see the large necklace here is using the most incredible tiger's eye nuggets, and then this tiny little rosary link chain going through the center is actually using diamond nuggets. So you can see the difference in extreme from the different gemstones that you can use, exactly the same technique, which is why I love rosary linking so much. And then we've got these pieces here. Again, these are all using genuine gemstones. So we have aquamarine and we have the most beautiful rutile quartz. And again, you can match the wire color to the corresponding gemstones as well. This is a piece that I've recently made on one of our JewelleryMaker shows, and it's a long line necklace. Now you can see here it looks as though there are multiple. This is actually one length of rosary linking, 10 feet long. It's the longest necklace that I've ever made, and it was an absolute joy to make. It took me most of the day to do, but it's definitely worthwhile. So you can wear it in any particular length or styles. Then this piece here, again, is using different colour gemstones. We've got lapis lazuli here, we've got shell pearl, we've got poppy jasper, we've got one of my favourites, amazonite. So you can see exactly the same technique again, but just determining that the type of gemstone and wire colour you use can produce completely different pieces of jewellery. And then as well as showing you the basics, how to start, how to continue with your rosary linking, I'm also going to show you a little embellishment, and this is called bead caging. So as you can see on this stunning aquamarine piece here, I'm going to show you this fail-safe way of caging your gemstones. And this is a really nice way of adding an embellishment to your rosary linking. Then a couple of pieces here. Again, that was a bracelet I just showed you, but we have here necklaces using that same embellishment with the caging. So this is mookaite, all the way from Australia. We've got amazonite, angelite, and then we've got these beautiful pearls as well. Now the piece to the left, we've got incredible, this is again a triple row necklace, and this is using pearls. And then lastly, the piece on the left there, again, it's using a completely different colour. This is using an antique bronze coloured wire. And I'm going to show you in a second the different gauges that you're going to need to do your wire rosary linking. So in front of me, I've got a board, and this is everything you're going to need to start on your rosary linking journey. So for the embellishments, you're going to need two heavier gauges of wire. This is a 1mm, and this is a 0.8mm gauge. Now you can rosary link with 0.8, but it's very difficult. It's a very tough gauge. It's very hard to manipulate properly. So I would only use the 1mm and the 0.8 for your embellishments, which will leave 3 gauges that you can actually rosary link with. So my favorite is this one here. This is your 0.6mm. It's strong enough to take any weight of any gemstone, but it's also soft enough to do the most intricate of wire wrapping to do your rosary linking with. If you're getting started on rosary linking and you haven't done it before, I would recommend going for this gauge. This is your 0.4mm. It's a finer gauge, it's a lot softer, and if, as I said, if it's your first go at your little first dabble at rosary linking, I would definitely start on the 0.4mm. And for those extra delicate little gemstones here, we have 0.25. So this is for your diamond nuggets that I showed you at the beginning in the introduction, or something like, for example, this is a faceted topaz, and it'll have very tiny drill holes. You might be able to get your 0.4mm through, but if you can't, you would go for the 0.25. So there's a wire gauge for every style and every gemstone. So gemstone wise, you can use absolutely anything. So in front of me, I've got the little topaz that we've just seen, the tiny. We've got some aquamarine. Then we've got amazing leopard jasper. Now leopard jasper, this is the strand that I'm going to be showing you how to rosary link with. Then we have cultured pearls, of which we have many different sizes, shapes and colours. We've got one of my favourites, we've got quartz. Now the quartz, the agate and the jasper, they all have large drill holes, so you'll be able to use your 0.6mm gauge wire beautifully. And then we have, again, this is a tiger's eye. This is a 12mm faceted strand, and again you can use your 0.6 or your 0.4mm gauge to do the rosary linking with. Now you've probably seen at the top of my board we've got some seed beads here. Now I only use the seed beads if, when I've made the coil of the rosary link, if the coil disappears inside the gemstone, then I use a little seed bead. These are 11Os, my Yuki glass, or an 8O, and that just acts as a stopper either side of the gemstone to stop the coil from going inside the gemstone, because the coil you want as part of the decorative feature of your rosary link. So that's our wire gauges. These are our gemstones. You will need a ruler, and the ruler we'll be using when we come to do our caging. So you won't actually need that for your rosary linking, but you will need that for the caging. We'll show you at the end of the demonstration. And tools, you will need a pair of wire cutters. Now you can either use our wire cutters from our basic toolkit, which is available on the website, but you will find that flush cutters are definitely the best type of cutter to use, because they have a very, very, very fine point to get into all those little nooks and crannies when you're doing your cutting of your rosary linking. Then you will need a pair of round nose pliers, and you can see the round nose cones at the end here. So they're your round nose pliers. And then you will also need a pair of flat nose pliers. So as you can see, there's hardly any tools involved at all. You've got your wire gauges, you've got your 3 types of tool. So there's only one thing left to do, and that's to make start on learning how to rosary link. Right, let's get started. So what we're going to show you first of all is how to do a rosary link, and I'm going to show you how to turn your rosary links into a rosary chain. So in front of me here, as I mentioned, I've gone for 0.6mm wire, which is my favourite gauge, and I'm going to use my wire cutters just to cut off a manageable length between 10 and 12 inches. And the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to soften our wire. And this will help with the manipulation when you come to do your rosary linking. So first of all, we're going to need our round nose pliers. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at our pliers. Now, there are specialist tools that you can get to actually, they're called bail making pliers, that you can actually get to make your rosary links. But what I tend to do is, I've been rosary linking now for many years, and I'm attuned to the size of the loops that I want to make. But what you can do is you can take a permanent marker pen, close the jaws of your pliers, and just make a little mark about halfway down your pliers. So when you come to position your wire to make your loops for your rosary linking, you will have a marker there as a guide to make sure that all your loops are the same size. Okay, so that's a little top tip. So we're going to take our piece of wire and we're going to place it in the jaws. Again, I'm going to use those little marks as a marker. You need about 1 inch of wire above your pliers, and then the rest of the wire towards you. Now I'm right-handed, so I hold the pliers in my right hand and I do all the manipulation of the wire with my left. So I'm going to take this shorter piece of wire, I'm going to fold it towards me, so now it is pointing at me, and then I'm going to continue all the way around, so the wire is now pointing at a right angle. So I'm going to take that off my pliers. So you can see now we have the vertical, we have the loop, and we have the horizontal piece of wire. So next I'm going to pick up my flat nose pliers, holding the wire in my left hand. I'm going to hold the loop within the pliers, the bit of the jaws of the pliers, and I'm going to hold the wire to the right of where the 2 wires cross. So I'm just going to hold nice and tight within the jaws. Then I'm going to take this little tail and I'm just going to manually wrap it 3 times around the longer length of tail. So that's 3 times. So you can now see that I have the loop and I have the coil, which is part of the decorative feature of the rosary linking. So next I'm going to cut off the little tail and put that to one side. And then what you need to do is just go around the edge with your flat nose pliers, just giving a little squidge because you need to be able to just run your thumb over the top of your wire work to make sure there are no catches. Then we're going to pop on our gemstone, and I've gone for the leopard jasper. Now these are 8mm rounds, so I'm going to take one of my jaspers and I'm going to pop it down onto my wire. So now you have your loop, the beginning of your coil, and your gemstone. So what we need to do now is do the other half of the coil. So we're going to place our round nose pliers after the bead, and what you want to do is you want to leave the same amount of space after your bead that you have that makes the coil before. So I've been, as I said, I've been doing this quite a while now, and it's about 3mm to get 3 of your coils. So what we're going to do is we're going to treat the long piece of wire as if it were the shorter piece that we had at the beginning of the link. We're going to take this wire, we're going to fold it all the way over, we're going to veer off to the left, and we're going to manipulate the wire so that it sits as a loop as it did on the previous side. We're going to go in with our flat nose pliers again. We're going to hold the loop to the right of where the wires cross, and we're going to slowly wrap 1, 2, 3. So we now have 3 coils to the left of the bead, 3 coils to the right. And then what I like to do is I like to have my 2 loops facing the same direction. So I'm going to hold the loop in my right pliers, and I'm just going to use my fingers just to turn the loop to the left. So you can now see that I've got both loops, one to the left and one to the right, facing both horizontal. It looks like a little bumblebee at the moment. Then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to cut using my pliers, and then we're just going to go in, place our round nose pliers in the loop just to straighten and just give it a little flatten either side. Okay, so that is a rosary link. So now we're going to start to make a rosary chain. So I'm going to put that to one side. I'm going to take my piece of wire and exactly the same. So place my pliers in the mark that I made earlier. I'm going to take that little tail towards me all the way around so it's vertical. I'm going to take it off my pliers. So now you have your little loop with a right angle. Before you do the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to take our previous link we made, and we're going to take one of the loop ends and we're going to slide it over the short tail and manipulate it so that it sits and hangs within that little loop. Can you see it's caught it nice and tight. We're going to go in with our flat nose pliers to the right of the cross, and we're going to do our 3 little wraps. 1, 2, 3. We're going to cut off our little tail. Okay, so we've got beginnings of our rosary chain. Then we're going to take our next gemstone, slide it on. We're going to place our pliers about 3mm the other side of the gemstone. Make sure that we've got it level on our mark on our pliers. We're going to bring the wire towards us, veer off to the left, back in to the right, slide it off our pliers. So you can see now we've got our second loop. We're going to place our flat nose pliers to the right of where the wires cross, and we're going to wrap once, twice, 3 times. We're going to make sure that our 2 loops are sitting in the same direction. They're both horizontal and flat. So we're going to take our wire and we're going to snip it like so, and then we're just going to go in and give it a little bit of a tidy up, and then just straighten and manipulate your loops so they're all sitting right. So we've got the beginning of a chain. So we'll do one more. So we're going to take our wire, place our inside our jaws of our pliers about 1 inch. We're going to start our loop, so towards me, underneath, so we have it sat at a right angle like so. We're going to take our previous chain that we've made, so I'm going to slide it on, and we're going to make it have it so it hangs within the loop. Okay, so you can already see we've got our chain starting. Going to take our flat nose pliers, we're going to hold the loop to the right of where the wires cross, and we're going to make our coil. So we've got 1, 2 and 3 loops. Going to cut off our little tail. We're going to take our next gemstone, slide that on, straighten out our wire. Every time you straighten your wire between your thumb and finger, it softens and warms up the wire as well, so it'll make it easier for you to use. Going to take our pliers, again 3mm from the gemstone, take the wire towards me, all the way over, veering off to the left, and then we're coming back into the middle. Going to take it off our round nose pliers, going to take our flat nose to the right of the loop, 1, 2, 3, straighten out our links, and then we're going to cut our wire. Okay, so you can see how quickly this builds up, and because we've now got those links and they're attached and they're wrapped and coiled, they're very, 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 very well attached. They're not going to come undone at all. Okay, so I'll quickly do one more. So got our shorter piece of wire, find the mark on our pliers, bring the wire towards me, going to take it off. We're then going to go to the right of the loop and we're going to do our coils. Now I've just made a deliberate mistake to show you if this does happen, don't worry. So as you can see, I've closed my loop before I've attached my chain. Okay, so at this point, don't cut it off and start again, because all we do is we do everything in reverse. So I take my tail, I cut the tail, I then slide on my next gemstone, straighten my wire, find my point on my pliers, find the gap between the bead and the pliers, wire towards me, veer off to the left. Now before I close that loop, I take my chain and then I add it afterwards. I've done it many times where I've closed my loop before I've attached my chain, but as you can see, you don't have to worry about it because you can just add it on at the end. We take our flat nose pliers across the loop and we tie our 1, 2, 3 coils, straighten out our loops, cut off our little tail, and that's our 4th. So all you would do now is you would then continue with the length of your necklace. And with rosary linking, what I like to do is, because we've got our gemstone strand, which is 40 centimeters, because you're adding a link in between each one, that at least doubles to 80, even 90 centimeters. So there's nothing stopping you continuing with your chain and then join the two ends together exactly the same way that I've shown you to make an over the head necklace. So you don't even need to use a toggle clasp or a bolt ring clasp. It's simply link one end to the other and use it over the head. So it's a fantastic little technique, and as you said, very, very therapeutic, and it just makes your gemstones go a lot further as well. So as I said, if you've got a strand of gemstones, through rosary linking, it will double the length of the strand at least, and you get this little decorative feature in between. And also it won't be as heavy because you're omitting half of the gemstones in the strand. So that's your rosary linking, and what I promised I was going to show you was how to cage your beads. So just pop those to one side, I'll keep that. So what you're going to need now, you will need your 0.6mm still, so don't put that to one side. And you will need, I'm going to go for 0.8mm for this. So we'll just cut a piece off the 0.8mm. You can use 1mm if you want to, but I find 0.8 is quite a nice gauge to use. I'll cut that off. So this is where you need your ruler that I mentioned at the beginning of the tutorial. So what I'm going to tell you now is a little rule about bead caging, and it's really good to look back and repeat and maybe even pause and just make a note of what I'm going to tell you now. So we're going to continue using our 8mm gemstones. So what you need to do is you need to remember this little rule. Whatever size your gemstone is in millimeters, you go down a number in centimeters. So this is a 8mm, so you're going to cut a piece of wire 7 centimeters. If you had a gemstone that was 10 millimeters, you would cut a piece of wire 9 centimeters. So whatever the millimeterage is in your gemstone, you drop a number for the centimeterage in your length of wire, and you will have enough wire then to do a perfect cage every time. Okay, so that's a really nice little simple rule as far as your bead caging goes. So this is an 8mm bead, so we're going to cut 7 centimeters of wire. So we've got our 0.8, going to line it up on our ruler, and we're going to cut 7 centimeters of your wire. Now while it is on your ruler, hold it nice and tight, take your round nose pliers, and you're going to find the center point. So this is 7 centimeters, so we're going to take our pliers, we're going to pick up that wire at 3.5, slide that along. Okay, so make sure that's dead on, there we go. So 3.5 centimeters, just find the central point. And all we're going to do is just going to give a little tiny kink. So you can see now we've got a definite center point on our wire. So what we're going to do now, they're called coils, but I like to call them snail swirls. So we're going to take one of our ends, and what we're going to do is we're going to go very, very, very close to the point of our pliers. So very, very close to the pliers, getting too close there. And also you want to be able to run your finger over the top of the pliers without touching the wire that's within. Okay, so you can just see the wire in there. And then all we're going to do is we're going to make a tiny little loop. Okay, so you can see we've got a little circle at the end of our wire. Now taking our flat nose pliers, what we're going to do is we're going to hold that loop in between the jaws of the pliers, and we're just going to do tiny little movements, and you can see that it starts to make a little swirl. Now what you need to make sure is you have at least 1 millimeter to 2 millimeters a gap in between your swirls. So we're going to continue round. Just do a couple at a time, maybe 2 or 3, and then just check back that you've got the gaps. If you find that your gaps are getting too tight, you can just reverse and open up your gaps if you want to. So we're just going to continue that until we get as close to the middle as we can. So you can see that was my middle gap, and we've got our swirl. Next I'm going to go to the other end of the wire, and my swirl on here is going clockwise, so you need to make it go clockwise on the other direction. So we're going to go flip it round, and I'm just going to make my little loop that we had at the top. Okay, so you can see it's in the opposite direction. You'll see the swirl starting to happen in a second. So again, we're going to hold the wire in our jaws, and we're going to gently make our little swirls. And as I said, if you find you're getting too close to the next layer of your wire, you can just reverse, as I've done there, and just open it out ever so slightly. So again, it's very, very simple. Okay, so we have our coil, our figure of S, we'll call it an S. Can you see it? We've got our coil. So what we're going to do next is we're going to attach our cage to our bead, and it doesn't look very much like a cage at the moment. What we're going to do is we're going to take our S, and we're going to hold it in our finger either end. Then using my other finger, I'm going to push ever so slightly until we have a right angle. So it looks like a little clamshell at the moment. We're going to hold that in our fingers, and we're going to offer up our gemstone to the cage. And all we're going to do is we're just going to use our nails just to manipulate the wire around the gemstone. And as you can see, we've got the perfect amount of wire to cover as a cage around our gemstone. So we'll put that to one side. We're going to go back to our rosary linking. So we're back to our 0.6. So I'll cut another piece of wire off there. Okay, so we're going to start our next link. So we're going to, again, find our mark on our pliers. And then we've got 1 inch from the end. And we're going to pop in our chain. And we're going to go back with our flat nose pliers to the right of where the wires cross. And we're going to do our 3 coils. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to look for the drill hole. So my drill hole will need to correspond with that tiny little loop we made at the beginning of our cage. So can you see we've got that tiny little loop, and you can see the gemstone hole directly behind it. So we've got that perfectly lined up. So I'm going to take my piece of 0.6, I'm going to go down through, and I'm going to come back up through the other side of the gemstone. You just need to make sure that you come up through the loop as well. So this is really important, you have a tight loop at the beginning of your caging. So we're going to slide that down as if it were an ordinary gemstone, and we're going to repeat our rosary linking exactly as we would do if there wasn't a cage. So we're going to go in about 3 millimeters gap between our gemstone and our caging. We're going to go towards me, veering off to the left. We're going to take the coil in our flat nose pliers, and we're going to do our coiling. So 1, 2, 3, and then all we're going to do is cut off our tail, like so. Make sure that our loops are sitting horizontal, which they are. And then if you're not happy with the way your cage is forming, just go in and manipulate the wires. And this is why 0.8 is really good for your caging, because it is strong, but it still gives you the maneuverability just to move your cage. So we'll place that down on our mat. We go back to our 0.6 millimeter wire. And then we go back to our chain again. So what I tend to find when I'm doing my caging is I like to have cage, ordinary bead, cage, ordinary bead. I'm going to remember to put my chain on my open link. And then we're going to do our 3 coils. And we're going to cut off our tail. And then we're going to go back to our gemstones, thread that on, round those pliers, find our mark, leave our gap, wire towards me, veer off to the left. We're going to hold the loop in my pliers where the wires cross, and we're going to do our 3 coils, 2, 3. And then we're going to cut our wire. So you can see now that we've made our rosary chain, we've made our rosary link, and we've done our little caging. And before we go, I just quickly like to show you what can be achieved. I'm just going to take this necklace off the bust here. So this is, as I mentioned, a piece that I recently made on the JewelleryMaker show. And this is 10 feet in length, so we've probably got about 150 rosary linked gemstones there. So this is the sort of thing you can achieve with all of the little demonstrations that I've shown you. And you can also, with the caging I've shown you, with that simple rule about the wire length, you can also replicate the caged bracelet as well. So from those simple little techniques, within the last half an hour, you'll be able to produce pieces of work like this. Very enjoyable, very therapeutic, very repetitive, which is the sort of jewellery maker I like, and it's great for mindfulness and well-being, which we could all do with at the moment. So for that alone, this is worth its weight in gold. So I hope you enjoyed the demonstration, all about rosary linking, and you've seen just how cost-effective it is and how easy it is for you to learn and to practice and perfect. It's a lovely technique, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look very much to seeing you very soon on JewelleryMaker. Goodbye.